You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Some things just can't be communicated. The awesomeness of some things just can't be got across with audio alone. It's a limitation of the medium. Radio, podcasts, overhearing someone on the bus. None of that can do justice to the hero who projected the word shithole over the entrance to the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. this weekend. If you didn't already see it, go search for it. Anyone entering the Trump International violation of the Emoluments Clause hotel and influence peddling casino had to walk under the word shithole and through a storm of poop emojis. Activist and artist Robin Bell is responsible for this snarky bit of resistance, and a grateful nation salutes you, Robin. Bell's zap was a reaction to a protest against Trump's remarks earlier in the week during a White House meeting about immigration. The president of the United States called Haiti and African nations shithole countries during a meeting about immigration and wondered why we can't just bring in more people from Norway instead. If you're hearing about all this for the very first time, I hope you enjoyed your news and social media fast and that the bed in the soundproof room where you've been locked for the last week was comfortable. Two things I want to talk about in relationship to this. One quickly, and this is getting overlooked because the outrage has focused quite rightly on what our racist asshole president said about Haiti and African nations. But why on earth would anyone want to come to the United States from Norway? Free healthcare, free education, generous pensions, paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave. Why would anyone want to leave all of that behind for our higher child poverty rates, our higher infant mortality rates, our gun nuts, and our education and healthcare systems, both of which are designed to bankrupt you? Anyway, lots of people were speaking up against Trump last week while you were out there floating in that isolation tank, even a Republican or two. Mia Love, a Republican member of Congress from Utah and the only black Republican woman in Congress, called Trump's statements racist and had this to say on the lead Jake Tapper show on CNN.
Your parents are immigrants from Haiti. You were the first Haitian American elected to the United States Congress. How did it feel to hear those comments from the president?
Well, Jake, I can't defend the indefensible. It was really difficult to hear, especially because my parents were such big supporters of the president. And I think that we have to do everything we can to make sure that we are coming from a place of compassion and we're speaking from a place of kindness. I mean, that is the at least minimal standard here.
To be clear, it's not just Miss Love's parents who support Donald Trump. So does Miss Love. She has voted with Trump, according to 538.com, 96.7% of the time. And Love was, best as I can tell, silent when Trump was attacking Mexicans, Muslims, trans men and women, waging a racist campaign against our first African-American president. And Love was silent throughout Trump's racially charged, racially motivated, racially racist attacks on black NFL players, black members of Congress, black grieving Gold Star widows. Trump has been blowing a racist dog whistle into a bullhorn for the last 2 years. And Mia Love speaks up now because Trump finally got around to attacking her, and her parents, her Trump-supporting Haitian immigrant parents. And now she's shocked to find out that hatred is going on here, shocked and saddened and distressed. And so are her parents. Excuse me, but who did Love and her parents think they were voting for back in November? If compassion and kindness are, to quote Mia Love, minimal standards, how could you support Donald fucking Trump, who was clearly a racist piece of shit prior to last week, and an accused sexual predator, and someone who mocked a disabled reporter at a political rally in front of cameras and into a microphone? Mia Love didn't actively defend any of that so far as I can tell, but she didn't speak up against any of that either. Silence equals death, as AIDS activists once said. Well, in Trump's America, silence equals acquiescence. Silence equals support. And Love hasn't just been supporting Trump with her silence. She's been supporting Trump, the racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, environment despoiling, healthcare imperiling Trump agenda with her votes. as a member of Congress. Loves epiphany. Donald Trump, maybe not a nice guy, is another example of what I like to call the empathy gap, the failure of moral imagination that seems to be a defining characteristic of all card-carrying members of the conservative movement. We've talked about this before. Rush Limbaugh believed that drug addicts and dealers should be thrown into jail until he got addicted to drugs himself, and now he supports treatment. Megyn Kelly of Fox News, now of NBC, came around to support maternity leave after she got pregnant. Rob Portman was against gay marriage until his son came out. Then he's for gay marriage. It doesn't matter. It's not important until it happens to them. Your kid wants to get gay married? Fuck you. Fuck your kid. My kid wants to get gay married? I support gay marriage. Trump is attacking Mexicans and Muslims? Fuck you. Fuck you both. Fuck you all. Oh, Trump's attacking Haitians? My parents? Oh, that's a problem. Mia Love's comments got a lot of attention last week. But you know what? Go read Charles Blow's column in the New York Times, headlined "Trump is a Racist" instead. And definitely, while you're on NewYorkTimes.com, look up the piece by Roxane Gay, the one she wrote for the Times. Gay's parents are also Haitian immigrants who came to the United States seeking a better life, as they say. Gay's piece rejects uplift. She refuses to end it with calls to resist or by pointing to rays of hope. And Gay tells us instead to sit with the sorrow, the distress, and the national humiliation of Donald Trump. No one is coming to save us, Gay's piece concludes. Before we can figure out how to save ourselves from this travesty, we need to sit with that too. Blow and Gay have been speaking up and speaking out against Trump since he first announced his run in 2015. They're liberals, they're lefties, they're Democrats, they're progressives. And they didn't just start speaking up against Trump because Trump finally got around to attacking them or their parents. They've been speaking up as Trump has been attacking people all along. People, period. Anyone who only speaks up against Trump after he gets around to attacking you or your family, well, you've got something to sit with in addition to the humiliation, the national disgrace, the distress, the sorrow that is Donald Trump. You need to go sit with your complicity. All right, coming up on today's show, on the Micro and Magnum, tons of your Qs, lots of my As. And on the Micro edition of the Savage Lovecast this week, we have a very special guest. Cecile Richard, president of Planned Parenthood, is here to talk about the resistance. Also, Planned Parenthood note at itmfa.org and peachthemotherfuckeralready.com. We are selling special ITMFA pink t-shirts and pink beanie hats. All proceeds from the sale of pink ITMFA gear go to Planned Parenthood. So if you want to support Planned Parenthood and support Cecile Richards, who is our guest today, go to itmfa.org. All right, let's get to the calls.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Try Squarespace at squarespace.com and enter offer code SAVAGE at checkout to get 10% off. Squarespace, build it beautiful.
Today's episode is brought to you by Stamps.com. Stamps.com brings all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your fingertips. Buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter, any package, any class of mail using your own computer and printer. And right now you can enjoy the Stamps service with a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus postage and a digital scale. Go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in my code SAVAGE. That's Stamps.com, click the mic, enter SAVAGE.
Hey, Dan. About a month ago, I met a guy online, and we hit it off really well. He's been separated from his wife for about 6 months. Well, the minute that she found out he was out having fun with another woman, me, she decided that she wanted him back, and he went to go try it one more time. The marriage was rocky the whole time. They've been married. Pretty much he's doing it for his kids. What do you think that the success rate on that would be? He said that he's never felt more alive. He was pretty much close to dead when him and I met, and everything has been perfect. And all of a sudden, she wants him back, so he went.
You ask what the success rate is for guys who were thinking about leaving their wives, got a new girlfriend, and then went back to their wives because they're kids, what the success rate for that might be. And I don't think that's the real question here. I think the question you're asking is, should you wait around for this guy? And the answer there is probably not. This is a guy who dated you, told you all sorts of lovely romantic things about how you made him feel alive. And then the minute his wife snapped her fingers, apparently, he went running back to her and dropped you like a hot turd, hurting your feelings and making you wonder whether he was telling you the truth. And he might not have been telling you the truth. Who knows? Maybe he says this to all the women he cheats on his wife with when he's thinking about leaving her. You just can't know. So the question isn't what the success rate here might be. And I imagine there's not a lot of data out there. I don't think this has been the subject of much research, but I imagine the success rate is lowish. But there are a lot of couples out there who live for drama, and they break up and get back together and separate and get back together. And while they're separated, they date other people who they discard when they get back together. And they leave a lot of battered and bruised egos and psyches and former temporary partners in their wake. I don't know if this is this guy's MO. You spent some time with him. Had he left her before? Had he dated other women and gone back to her in the past that you are aware of? If the answer to that is yes, if you were the third or fourth girlfriend that he's had while he's been married and then he's gone back to the wife each time, you shouldn't be sitting at home hoping their marriage collapses and he'll come back to you, because that would be unlikely. Because this isn't a bug in their relationship, this kind of drama. It's a feature, and it's what keeps them both in it, because they both want that. If indeed that's what's been going on here, and I can only speculate. It's over. You got dumped. That's what happened. You got dumped. He left you for someone else who happens to be the person he was with before he met you. And that hurts, and it sucks, and you can wish them ill and hope that it collapses and that it's not a success, or you can just get the fuck on with your life and go find somebody else who's not encumbered by spouses and dramatic marriages and kids and other shit that is going to complicate your ability to form a lasting bond with that guy. Didn't happen with this guy. This guy dumped you, went back to the wife, time to grieve it, slam that door closed, create your own closure, go find somebody else.
Hello, everyone. Do you need to build a website for your business or for some awesome creative project you've got going on? Building a website does not have to be a big old pain. It can be easy, and by God, it can be fun. But how? Well, Squarespace makes it so easy to crank out a beautiful, professional-looking website or blog, or even an online store. They have templates that were created by world-class designers that you can just drop in and it looks good right away. And they have built-in e-commerce, so you can sell stuff and make yourself a little money. There's nothing to patch or upgrade, and if you need help, they have 24/7 support. So you see, you can make it yourself so easily and make it stand out with Squarespace. Head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com, offer code SAVAGE.
Hi, Dan. I'm a heterosexual woman, and I have been in a loving relationship with a great guy for the past 5 months. Within the first 10 minutes of having met him, he told me that he was polyamorous. I am not poly, but I was intrigued and would consider it as a way of life myself should the right man or men come into it. I fell for him in part because of his honesty and authenticity around this topic. My lover travels a lot, and his other 2 relationships are in other countries. Early on in our relationship, I broke up with him because I felt the polyamory was at odds with what I wanted from him. In part because his Facebook posts include the 2 of us when we are together, and then, of course, other Facebook posts when he is with the other women. We had a long phone conversation about my feelings towards seeing these posts, and I decided that I could try compartmentalizing my relationship with him. Since that conversation, he hasn't posted anything relating to these other women, so I haven't been mentally challenged again. So here's the crux of the story. He came to visit me for a couple of weeks in my home. One day, about a week after he had left, I noticed a couple of dried, milky white streaks at the bottom of my full-length mirror. On the floor were a few more large spots of the same look. I asked him in a message if he jacked off in front of my mirror. We laughed about it, and I jokingly said I would leave a box of tissues next to the mirror for the next time. Then in the same message string, he said, I have a confession. And then he wrote, I videoed it, and I used your small vibrator too. So I took that in and typed, you're a little kinky. And he said, Yes, he likes to push the envelope. A couple of mornings later, I woke up and realized a burning question needed to be asked. I messaged him, "Who did you send the video to?" He answered that he was surprised that I didn't want to see it, but he did send it to one of his other lovers. So I pose to you, Dan, 2 questions. The first one is my biggest concern. Does this act as being in my home, jacking off in front of my mirror with my vibrator and sending the video to another lover seem duplicitous? I mean, it occurs to me that he isn't capable of being content with wherever he is at any given time. Also, do you have any statistics on the percentage of women who actually enjoy receiving videos of their lovers jacking off?
First things first, your boyfriend, this guy that you've been seeing for a while, told you that he's poly, told you he has lovers in different countries. And that's a fine thing, and he disclosed that right away, and you opted into this relationship. But it sounds like the kind of relationship that you would like to have is a DADT open relationship, a don't ask, don't tell open relationship, where you're never confronted with evidence of your partner's extracurricular sexual activities, that there is a space created where you can live in a kind of not denial about the fact that you're in an open relationship, but suspended disbelief about the fact that you're in an open relationship, where your partner goes to some lengths to cover their tracks, to not torment you with mental images that you would prefer to not be tormented by. And that's a completely valid option. It's also a good control. Some people worry that if they have an open relationship, that their partner, who may be more sexual than they are, have a higher libido than they do, is going to spin out of control or constantly rub your nose in all these other partners that they have. And having a DADT agreement really limits the opportunities for the partner who is out there acting on that kind of open relationship agreement. Because if they can only do it at a time and in a place and with a person where no evidence is ever going to cross your field of vision, that is going to limit their outside sexual contacts, while still, of course, allowing them to have them. Seems to me that you and your new boyfriend need to get on the same page about what kind of open relationship you're in. It's unworkable for him to be in one kind of open relationship with you and you to be in a different kind of open relationship with him. You have to arrive at some sort of consensus. That said, you seem a little offended by the fact that he used his vibrator. I would, in your shoes, be much more offended by blowing a load on my mirror and coming all over my floor and not cleaning it the fuck up. I would also, if I were you, ask him where he used that vibrator. If you're using that vibrator as a penetrative sex toy, you don't want him sticking it in his butt or running it up and down his hole, and then you putting that same vibrator into your vaginal canal and introducing fecal bacteria. And someone who will blow a load on your mirror and come all over your floor and not clean that up is unlikely to clean your vibrator before returning it to your bedside drawer. That's the convo I would have with him. But those are the questions you asked. You asked this question at the end. What's the statistic? How many women enjoy receiving videos of their lovers jacking off? And I don't think that there's data there. That's not the kind of study into human sexuality that the CDC or any other funding organization is going to underwrite. I hope, though, that the percentage is pretty high. We're not talking about an unsolicited dick pic here. We're not talking about leaping out at someone from their DMs on Instagram or Twitter with a dick pic, a dick attached to someone that you don't know from Adam and that you didn't want to see. That shit's not okay, and guys should knock that the fuck off. But you're talking about your boyfriend sending a video of him jacking off to one of his long-term, regular sex partners, to one of the women he's in relationships with on the other side of the world. And your assumption seems to be that that would never be welcome, that no woman in the world would want to see that. And you're projecting your discomfort, your sex negativity onto these other women who, for all you know, like his dick and like to look at it and appreciate being thought of and want to see him blowing those loads at times when he's not able to blow them with him, and maybe they're sending him similar videos in return. Sometimes when we talk about unsolicited dick pics, there's this creeping kind of phallophobia. Not that people should want to see unsolicited. I don't want to see unsolicited dick pics, but it spills over into nobody wants to see a dick ever at all. And that's just not true. And hopefully isn't true of the vast majority of women out there who are partnered with men. Tracy Clark Flory wrote this terrific piece for Salon about sexting with her husband and how this had improved their sex life. And they were monogamous, and they would flirt during the day, sometimes send each other dirty text messages, dirty pictures, dirty videos, and it enhanced their sex life, enhanced their connection. So there's at least one woman out there who's written about welcoming the solicited dick pic or solicited dick video. Sounds to me like these other women, the other women in your boyfriend's life, welcome these videos. I can't imagine they would still be with him if he was sending them unwelcome dick videos. I don't think this is relevant, though, to your problem or your situation or your relationship. What's relevant here is you two need to get on the same page about the kind of open relationship you're going to have and you're going to be in. And he needs to be considerate of your possessions, of your surfaces, your mirrors, your floors, and not leave spunk lying around the house for you to step in or slip on or clean up for him, particularly spunk that's being produced by him for someone else, for someone else's pleasure and enjoyment, their visual pleasure and enjoyment. That's a dick move. And then there's the dick move of grabbing your vibrator and using it without your permission and without including you in the sexiness. So, yeah, lots to talk about with the boyfriend. Here's a New Year's resolution you can actually keep. Add Stamps.com to your business and save a ton of time and money this year. Stamps.com brings all the amazing services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your computer. Simply create your Stamps.com account online in minutes, print official U.S. postage for any letter or package, any class of mail, and let the mailman pick it up. No leaving the office, no leaving your house if you have a home business, no more hassle. Stamps.com even sends you a digital scale that automatically calculates exact postage. And they have postage discounts you cannot get at the post office. Plus, it's a fraction of the cost of those new super expensive postage meters. And right now, you too can enjoy the Stamps.com service with a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus postage and a digital scale. Ready for a happier new year? Go to Stamps.com. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Savage. That's Stamps.com. Enter Savage at the top of the homepage.
Hey, Dan. I'm a mid-20s male, gay male calling from the West Coast. And I have a question about dating etiquette. In the past, I would always date men that I would not usually have sex until, maybe the 4th or 5th meeting. And we had much more strong relationships. And I think part of it was because I was afraid of STDs when I was younger more. And now that I'm older in the era of PrEP, etc., I find I meet guys on dating apps or at a bar or through friends that are really nice guys. But if I go to bed with them the first or second time, the relationship our connection can kind of fizzle off pretty fast. And I'm wondering, is this something to do with the guy? Is it something to do with having sex too soon? Is that something that can make a relationship fizzle out? I'm just a little confused because a lot of my straight friends, this can be a pretty common thing. You have sex and then suddenly, you're in a relationship, or even with my gay friends as well. So I'm just sort of wondering if there's any correlation between having sex early on and a relationship not coming to be and it being more of a hookup. Any advice you have would be great.
An insta hookup can definitely turn into a relationship. If you think about the same-sex couples, even the opposite-sex couples, there are probably lots of examples if your friends are the types of people who are honest with you about how they met, who are in long-term committed, successful, stable, loving relationships that began with a sleazy one-night stand or an anonymous sexual encounter or an app-facilitated hookup. That said, there are more people on the apps looking for an instant hookup and only an instant hookup. So you're selecting, when you go to the apps, for more of those types of guys who are interested in only the hookup. Now, there are going to be plenty of guys on the apps and everywhere else who are interested in more than a hookup too, but their numbers are going to be fewer. So I would advise you to continue doing what you're doing, continue having the sex that you want to have with the people you want to have it with, and communicate to them, whether you're meeting on an app or meeting through friends or meeting at a club, that you're looking for the sex you'd like to have right away, but also open to more, and then see what happens. But this isn't really about dating etiquette, caller. This is about strategy. And your previous strategy sounds like it was a more successful one for you. It Doesn't mean that you have to wait to have sex to have a long-term, lasting, stable, loving, committed relationship. Again, lots of people out there in long-term, loving, stable, lasting, committed relationships who met via apps or anonymous or nearly anonymous one-night stand hookups. So that can work. It hasn't worked for you in the way that you would like it to. And I would encourage you then to return to the strategy that previously worked better for you. Not because it's a better strategy all by itself, but it was clearly the more successful strategy for you. Whatever you bring to the table, sexually, emotionally, you had better outcomes waiting. So I'd encourage you perhaps to think about reverting to your more successful prior strategy. You can continue to meet people on apps and chit-chat and flirt, and you can tell the people that you meet on apps, I'm not into an instant hookup. And immediately, that filters out all the guys who are only interested in an instant hookup. Tell guys that you meet, even on apps, you want to hang out a few times. You need to get to know somebody first before you are sexual with them. And if they're not willing to make that investment in you, well, they're not open to or interested in a relationship or a relationship with you, and you can move on, and eventually you'll find the guy who is interested. So access the apps, use the apps, but bring your previous dating strategy to the apps with you.
Hey, Dan, 21-year-old female living in the Boston area. I was just calling to ask how I should go about interacting with my Trump-supporting mother. I am gay. You know, she's been remotely supportive of that trait that I guess I have for the past 6 years that I've been out. But I called her to let her know about Trump's attacks on Planned Parenthood, and her response was incredibly shallow, narrow-minded, her saying that everybody should pay their own way, this and that. And I reminded her that my older sister had actually gone to Planned Parenthood for screenings, for pregnancy tests, for just like advice multiple times when she was young and in high school. And when I called her up this morning about it, she was very upset, saying that I attacked her, saying that I ruined her day, all of these things. I mean, her and I have always bumped heads. It's really taking a toll on our relationship. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I should say to her in the future. I don't know how I should go about talking with her about these topics without her going into this, I don't know, victimized mode where she takes everything I say and acts like it's a personal attack on her. I'm losing faith that her and I will ever actually connect again or actually ever really truly get along. If you could just say anything or tell me anything that I could tell her in the future that would kind of just either find a middle ground or just shut her the hell up, that would be great.
Joining me by phone to help tackle this question, Cecile Richards. She is the president of Planned Parenthood and Planned Parenthood Action Fund, a lifelong progressive organizer with roots in the labor movement and a leader in the resistance against Trump. Hey, Cecile, how are you?
Doing great, Dan. So great to be on the phone with you.
And likewise, thank you so much for making some time for us and jumping on the phone. Let's get right to it. You frequently have to discuss Planned Parenthood with people who not only rhetorically attack and malign and slander the life-saving work your group does, but have the political power to harm your organization, want to defund and end Planned Parenthood. Any tips or pointers on conversing with just mom who doesn't have that power? You must have some.
Well, I think that, look, there is sometimes a misunderstanding about who comes to Planned Parenthood. As I like to say, folks don't come to us to make a political statement. They come because they need access to affordable health care. And for a lot of young people, and particularly a lot of young men and women who may live in an area where they can't access, sort of unbiased, non-judgmental sexual and reproductive health care, Planned Parenthood is the best place to go. So I try to remind people that 1 in 5 women in this country have actually been to us for care, and that crosses all kinds of boundaries. I was interested that that this young woman is dealing with a Trump-supporting mom. Trump supporters come to Planned Parenthood too, so I think it's something to remember that we really do kind of reach into all parts of America. I think it's important, and I really want to applaud the caller for just saying, hey, look, a lot of folks use Planned Parenthood who need care, including folks in our own family. And she may not be able to convince her, but I think just putting the facts out there are really incredibly important. And again, it is a source of affordable care. And one of the things I always like to point out is we're actually at a historic low for teenage pregnancy in the U.S. And that's a success story that pretty much everybody in the country supports. And that's the kind of work that Planned Parenthood does every day.
And that success story is rooted in large part in access to contraceptives, particularly long-lasting contraceptives like IUDs and NuvaRings and implants, and Planned Parenthood makes that possible.
Right.
Planned Parenthood is probably the single biggest driver of the fall in the abortion rate in this country.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because, I do have to go to Congress a lot and try to explain to some of our elected officials why defunding Planned Parenthood would be a really bad idea. And as you say, we do more to prevent unintended pregnancy, probably, and the need for abortion than any organization in America. And we have made, particularly because under Obamacare, birth control is now covered for all people at no cost. We've made enormous strides in reducing unintended pregnancy and also getting people the kind of birth control that works best for them, which sometimes has been unaffordable. So to me, we should continue and double down on this progress instead of trying to cut off access to care to places like Planned Parenthood that are serving people who otherwise will probably go without health care.
What do you think animates the right-wing maniacal hatred for Planned Parenthood when Planned Parenthood achieves, in large part, a right-wing goal, bring down the abortion rate? And, when you confront these people and you present them with the facts that access to care decreases the abortion rate, that banning abortion isn't going to make abortion go away. People will still get abortions. They'll just be dangerous and unsafe abortions. As we've seen in countries that have banned abortions don't stop. Women die. Is that what they want? Why can't they accept the facts? What is driving this kind of culture kampf, this culture war against Planned Parenthood? Because it's not the data. It's not the empirical facts on the table that inspire it. What is it? This obsession on the right with destroying Planned Parenthood, which didn't used to be a right-wing obsession. George H.W. Bush was a big Planned Parenthood supporter. Mitt Romney was a Planned Parenthood supporter. Donald Trump was a Planned Parenthood supporter. What happened?
So there's a lot of questions in there, so it's hard to unpack it in just one with one particular answer. But I do think, look, we've seen, unfortunately, in the Republican Party, this sort of takeover by the extreme right wing, particularly their primary process. And I think the difficulty is now, yes, it used to be a very mainstream position to support Planned Parenthood. And in fact, Republicans started Planned Parenthood all across the country. Like I was just in Arizona where Barry Goldwater's wife was like one of the founders of Planned Parenthood. So it didn't used to be this way, but I think what we're seeing in Washington is this hyper-partisanship around a whole host of issues, and Planned Parenthood is part of that. I think the second piece of it is, look, there are some people in this country, and unfortunately, many of them are in Congress, who frankly don't want women to be doing anything other than having sex in order to procreate and have more babies. They don't want to see them in the workforce. They find them a threat. And that is, honestly, that's kind of been the core value of Planned Parenthood from the beginning 100 years ago when we started. It was that, if women could control the, when and whether they had children, they could do all kinds of things like finish school, like get a job, like support the family that they wanted to have. And that in large part has come true now. Women are half the workforce and we're more than half the graduate students in the U.S. I think there are still men in this country who pine for the days in which women didn't have those options. And that, unfortunately, again, I think a lot of them are in elective office.
I've always perceived a large part of the problem on the right with Planned Parenthood is that it does facilitate in their fevered imaginations sex for pleasure, not sex for the actual reasons you're supposed to have sex, which is just sex to make babies, which is crazy because we have a lot more sex than we do babies. Even the Santorums only managed, I think, 7. We have sex for pleasure. We have sex for pleasure primarily, and sex for kids rarely. Even if we never use birth control, we're not going to have a kid every time we have an orgasm. And that ties, I think, the movement for women's equality and reproductive justice to the gay rights movement. Because the problem that so many people on the right have with gay people is the same problem they have with women who are having sex without risking sexually transmitted infections, without risking an unplanned pregnancy. We're having sex for pleasure and fun and getting away with it. And that drives them crazy.
Right. Oh, completely. And I know that you certainly feel the wrath of these folks just like we do. But yeah, I mean, the threat of people having sex freely and enjoying it and without the fear of either pregnancy or a sexually transmitted infection, is something that some people can't wrap their heads around. One of my favorite statistics, which kind of refers back to what you're saying, was from Guttmacher, which is that the average woman in this country that wants to have children spends 5 years getting pregnant and having children, and then spends an average of 30 years trying not to get pregnant. And so, when you go to Congress and try to say, hey, birth control, it's really popular. Everyone uses it. I think it's just a good reminder that for many women, and I'll include myself in that, preventing an unintended pregnancy is kind of a lifetime job. And thank goodness we now have better birth control. Because of Obamacare, we have better access to birth control. And we are hell-bent on preventing Donald Trump and this administration from taking away that access to care.
Something you said a little earlier, that it's a big part of your job to put the facts out there. I like to think that everyone who listens to my show is familiar with the actual facts about Planned Parenthood, the work you guys do, the help you provide people with. But every once in a while, I get a call from someone or I meet somebody who says they're a listener or reader who is so wildly misinformed about Planned Parenthood's mission and what Planned Parenthood actually does. So for those small handful of listeners out there who haven't been paying attention every time I've talked about you guys or tried to raise money for you guys, tell them the facts. What does Planned Parenthood do briefly?
Sure. So we just celebrated our 100th anniversary. So that means we've been doing this for roughly 100 years, although when we started, of course, birth control wasn't even legal. But every year we see almost 2.5 million patients in our health centers, and we have health centers in every single state except for North Dakota, where we do education, but don't have a health center there. We do an enormous amount of testing and treatment for sexually transmitted infections, and in fact, one of the fastest growing populations coming to Planned Parenthood are young men, because if you're wanting a place that's not going to judge you, not going to embarrass you, just give you the care you need. In a lot of communities, including my home state of Texas, that can be Planned Parenthood. We also do for so many women who come in for they may come in for birth control because they got to have that, but then we can provide them breast cancer screening, cervical cancer screening, a basic well woman visit. So a lot of our patients, we're actually the only doctor visit that they will have all year. And then the last thing, which I think is really important, Dan, and certainly maybe news to a lot of your listeners, is we're increasingly providing transgender care across the U.S. We're in 18 states now, and that's continuing to grow. And we offer PrEP in 44 states. We think it's really important, as so many folks in the LGBTQ community come to Planned Parenthood for care, that we're increasing access to those services as well. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
One last question. You mentioned that Texas was your home state. Your mom was the second female governor and last Democratic governor of Texas. There's a lot of talk about turning red states blue. I often hear about turning Texas blue, but it's really turning Texas back to blue again. How do we do it?
Yeah, I know. It's complicated, right? I mean, Texas is it's true that it used to be a Democratic state, like way, way, way back, when I was a kid, but it wasn't really a progressive state. And so I do think sometimes the Democratic Party in the South isn't always associated with the best values.
That's true.
But you're right. There was a moment, there was this crazy moment when Mom was governor, and frankly, the whole statewide ticket were Democratic and very progressive. And then we kind of went into this very dark and cold place where we've been now for a long, long time. I think the thing about Texas, and it gets to another issue that I just feel passionately about, which is voter rights and the ability of people to participate. Texas isn't really even a red state. It's a non-voting state. And unfortunately, under the last two governors, they've done everything they can to prevent people from registering to vote, from voting at the polls. I mean, they constantly purge people from the rolls. And so I do think at the point when if people in Texas could vote easily, it would actually be, I believe, a Democratic state again. And it will be. It will be in our lifetime. It's taking longer than it should, I think.
Well, we saw in Alabama where similar moves have been made by Republicans to make it harder to vote. There's a lot of people got out there and voted anyway, just to throw it back in their faces. And hopefully that's what more and more people in Texas will do. Circling back quickly to the caller, because we're very far afield at this point. Is it okay if you, with your parents, if you just can't bring them around on an issue, to agree to disagree and make sure you get 4 or 5 of your friends registered to vote where your parents live so that they can dilute your parents' toxic voting patterns? Is it okay just to not talk about it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm really proud of the caller for just laying out the facts. But at some point, I don't think you have to waste your time trying to convert everybody in America to either the cause of Planned Parenthood or anything else. And in fact, I think sometimes we waste too much time on the people who are just frankly not interested in new information. And as you say, there are millions more people, particularly young people who may have never voted before, who need to get registered, who may need someone to remind them to go vote. And that can be incredibly effective. A better use of your time and energy than arguing with mom who's never going to come around. I think that's right. Although, I also think that sometimes, you never know. She may have said something to her mom that her mom is absolutely, hell-bent against listening to right now, but she's not going to forget that her daughter said that. And so I do think it's important to never give up, but also at some point you can quit beating your head against the wall and just move on. And that's what I think we've seen this year. And you used Alabama as example, but I mean, millions of people have now become either politically active or they've been active on a social justice issue that have never been active before. To me, that's what we should be focusing on, is encouraging that kind of participation and not trying to worry about the last folks that we may never bring over.
Cecile Richards, president of Planned Parenthood and Planned Parenthood Action Fund. Thank you so much for jumping on the phone today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you, Dan. Take care.
Hi, Dan. My husband and I have a question. We're interested in possibly having sex in front of another couple, and we aren't necessarily interested in a foursome. We're more interested in individually having sex with each other in the same room with another couple, and we both want to do it with a couple that we're sexually attracted to, but also maybe friends with, so that we feel comfortable and safe. And we're just wondering if you had any advice about how to go about asking friends or people that we trust to do this. We don't want to ruin some of our really great friendships, and we're not quite sure how to approach this.
You can ask friends if they might be interested in watching you two have sex or having sex at the same time in the same room while you two have sex. You are risking the friendship. There's some friends who, if you ask them that question, they're not going to feel comfortable around you anymore. They're going to wonder whether you were ever interested in their platonic friendship at all, or if you were just plotting the entire time to kind of bank shot, kind of sort of get in their pants. There's another option, which is to use the great internet sex facilitating, kink facilitating machine to find some couples out there who share your kink, who would like to do exactly what you two would like to do. Not have sex with other people, but have sex with each other in front of other people that they find sexy. And then make friends with those people. Become their friends. Let your friendship grow from that. Sometimes work or volunteering or living in the same apartment building or having some mutual friends bring people together, and great friendships grow out of those meetings, those bringing togethers. A great friendship can grow also from a bringing together that's purely sexual at first. Circling back to the friends that you've already got that you would like to fuck in front of, how sex positive are they? How sexually adventurous are they? Have you guys ever made out in the same room in front of other people who are making out at a dance thing or a party? Is there something in your relationship that allows for conversations about sex and kink and desire where you can put this on the table without necessarily saying, would you with us? You can say, if you have a friend that you share your fantasies with, we have this fantasy about having sex in front of another couple, but not sex with that other couple, but in front of them, without saying to the person that you're discussing it with, how about you? But it opens the door. And they may have fantasies that then they share with you, or they may say, oh my God, we have the same fantasy. And then Yahtzee, you're in. That's the less likely successful scenario, though. The more likely successful scenario is reaching out on the internet, seeking out other couples who have the same fantasy that you guys have, getting together to live those fantasies out, and then seeing if you have enough else in common that you can also be friends with those people. And very often, in my experience, that is not just possible, but highly likely.
Hi, this is a comment for the caller who is looking for a way to dismount from the new woman he's been dating who reminds him of his abusive ex. I would just like to call bullshit on that. Let's back up one click and see this is a man playing the field, playing tag and release. He's met this woman, he's chatted her up, had sex with her a couple of times, and now, shocker of shocker, she reminds him of his ex, and he's looking for a way to throw the fish back and keep on fishing. I'm not making a moral judgment on an action. I'm just saying let's call it for what it is. He's not a victim of his previous ex abuse. He's just a dude playing catch and release, looking for a guilt-free way to throw the fish back. That's all that is, no more, no less. We all have abusive exes in our past. Don't use it as a crutch. Just admit you're playing the field.
Hi, I'm calling in response to someone who has an older partner and she's not getting enough daily interaction. And I would tell her, look, I'm in my late 40s. Even my mother can text. This isn't an age thing. This is a difference in relationship style. This person is not someone who really wants a daily interactive relationship. Leave her.
Hi, Dan. The new sub-female who's feeling guilt after scenes. I completely agree with you, Dan, on the importance of aftercare. I would also like to mention that DOMs need aftercare too, so they should communicate about that as well. It is an intense act, physically stirring up chemicals and emotions. And one thing that I find important is to check in with your Dom or sub, just even a call or a text a few days later, because there tends to be a bit of a low feeling that hits after a couple of days for a lot of people, even the most experienced kinksters. And I didn't catch if she was going to public dungeons or not, but if she is, I would recommend looking around her, and she'll notice couples holding each other and being warm and kind and communicating. And also for me as a Dom, I find it really helpful just to rub some bruise balm on my subs. And for me, it's an intimate act, and it shows that you care about their healing.
And we're going to leave it there. Quick note, in addition to going to itmfa.org and ordering some pink gear to support Planned Parenthood, you can support Planned Parenthood directly by going to plannedparenthood.org/donate. Even if it's just $5, there's two things organizations like Planned Parenthood can point to when people make donations, not just the amount of the donations or the money and support they're getting, but the numbers of supporters they're getting donations from. So please don't be shy about making a $5 or $10 donation. Every little bit helps, and adding yourself to the numbers of Planned Parenthood supporters out there, even if you can't shower them with money, is also a huge help. All right, 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you'd like to record a question or a comment for a future show, give us a buzz, 206-302-2064. If you like my political ranting at the top of the show, you will love me on Blabbermouth, the Strangers News of the Week podcast, hosted by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Eli Sanders. Me and Rich Smith and Eli, we tear it up every week. Look for Blabbermouth wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Cecile Richards on Twitter at Cecile Richards. Follow me on Twitter at Fake Dan Savage. Yes, I am verified. I am a real Fake Dan Savage. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We'll all be back at you next week. Another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for downloading.